Okay, let's get starting. So due to the, well, really the guest talk that you went potentially with Michelle to, I kind of swapped the planning part around because a lot of you will actually need this for the project delivery plan potentially, or as well resourcing constraints that we cover afterwards. So today is kind of a catch-up. So last week we did part of this week already. So today we start with planning really planning as an overall approach. And then second of all, we look a little bit at resource management. And here I'm not focusing so much on the hard part, so I hint this already in planning tools and techniques to plan resources. But the soft side of resource planning, that looks really at people management, how we recruit and how we actually think about if you want human resource or people management oriented problems in an organization. And in the past I used to have a guest speaker from a local, well, he belongs to the Airbus cluster, but they are local based, so I'm borrowing actually his case study to kind of show you how that looks on a larger program and project scheme when it comes to implementation of people-related issues. Yeah. Okay. Let's get started with the planning side of things. So planning to avoid chaos. The reading list is actually in the beginning of the slides of governance and project planning. Yeah? So I won't go back to that. Now today I want to cover with you in planning the project control cycle and PDCA. What does it stand for? Does anybody already know? Don't worry, this is the content, so we will unfold that in a second.
It's plan, do, check.
Yes. And that is actually one of the control cycles that you have available. Yeah, so on each activity or task that you are running, this is a smart way of engaging and looking after your performance, right? Then we have front-end influence, so we look a little bit at scope of work, programs and portfolios, how they may influence us, yeah, on the planning side particular. So this should be already an old hat with sessions that we had before, but we revise that. Then we have as well kind of a planning hierarchy. So here we come to scope, tactical decisions and kind of action, how to deal with this in a planning scenario. Stages of planning, so from inception to close out, here we go along the project life cycle. Then we revise a little bit the work breakdown structure, and I try to give you some examples that we have it on a practical day-to-day problem. Yeah? So I show you a few where you can use as well the work breakdown structure and think about sequencing and optimizing flow. Yeah? So this is something that we will cover as well. Then a little bit on control and reporting, but this is more like planning for control and reporting if you want. So prediction and trend analysis. We have actually a separate session in 2 weeks' time, yeah, on control and steering as well. And then last but not least, planning and planning techniques before we have a little bit to look at how to manage our resources. And then we have the follow-up talk with looking at people management and HR as well. HR standing for human resource, yeah, so controversially called that way. Yeah. Okay, so here's a project control cycle as already explained. It's my references are gone. This is concerning. Okay, but the references are actually in the list at the end. So the idea here being on each activity that you are planning to come to a consistency and follow through basically with where you're at with those activities, you follow this wonderful project control cycle. So it starts kind of by looking at your plan or actually planning, then following the plan, and then check if you have actually achieved it. And then either you can tick it and say like, okay, we have achieved this. Or if it's not the case, you have to act and take action. There are multiple models of that, and I hope I have the list here. No, I don't. So, so this is kind of the task-oriented way of checking, or can be work packages as well. Yeah? So if you work with contractors or supply chain, you may just get the product part where you follow this through, right? And look for alignment. But to actually sequence that and bring that into order, this is kind of where project control would be implemented. Yeah, so here first of all, you have given a scope maybe, with a project management plan or project file. This depends on your organization. Yeah? So traditionally it was a project management plan. Nowadays we have more and more different documents. We have recognized putting everything in one document is actually very difficult to handle, and people don't engage with it anymore, particularly if you have complicated projects. So the meaningfulness is still there, of course. This allows you then to come up with a schedule, baseline scheduling. Yeah, what is baseline scheduling? What do you think that could be? I have actually examples in a second, so I don't expect you to know that by heart, but what is maybe a baseline schedule? Okay, let's take a horrendous example. What about our assignments? What do you think is a baseline schedule there? And anybody? Yeah?
It's giving you a brief of the criteria that you need to do.
Yeah, so so baseline scheduling is kind of the activities and allocating time for it. But the answer here was as well spot on actually. It's a deadline. Yeah. So baseline scheduling is, for example, handover or delivery times versus when you are actually supposed to check the quality. Yeah, so particularly working here with different team members or organizations, you may have baseline schedules where things are delivered, where you have to check that it's actually what you ordered. Yeah. Now, with this comes as well kind of the monitoring and reviewing. So again, we have that in a separate session in a lot more detail, which then allows you, with the monitoring, to kind of realize how you are actually delivering according to plan, or how you actually have arrived at a change. Yeah? Maybe you need to follow something up. Again, here are different notions. So here it's actually managing change. This is one theory. There's where issue logs so there are different tools that you can use actually for that. But here the managing change idea is really you are managing the change that is not according to the plan. Yeah. Then you have an action plan from the change to maybe get back on a plan. Yeah. So here this is a corrective action. So you may notice that you had the plan wrong in the first place. This happens a lot. So you had good information from past projects, but you didn't realize that the project scenario was different. Then we have to maybe change the scope. Yeah. Alternatively, we can analyze here for trends. So if a contractor cannot deliver in the forerun times that they have given us, okay, we have to adjust that, right, to actually accommodate that and see if it's like basically an issue for our overall delivery. Yeah, and you can take then as well with the trends action. So here in the project management plan, you may want to have additional workforce involved if it's a task that can be enhanced that way, or think about a new way of delivering. Yeah. Okay. So this was kind of from the scope once run through as a control mechanism. Now there is an argument, and this comes really from the literature. Having said that, I had multiple MSc students that have looked at these correlations. So the argument is, when do we actually have influence on making scope changes, yeah, versus how much is the cost expenditure versus it. So here the scope range of the project, it's a breadth and depth. What do you do, or what to do? So in other words, at the beginning, the scope is still not quite clear. Yeah. So it's as well you haven't got your supply chain maybe in place, or your subcontractors are still subcontracting themselves. Yeah. So that may be something that impacts as well the scope, how you're actually doing things. And the more concrete you are getting to it, the more you have as well agreed potentially contractually matters. So when it comes to actually building it, when you go from the inception to planning, with planning you may set an agenda that has implications for other parties. Yeah? And once you start constructing and you want to make a change in the scope, it gets of course a lot more expensive. You have to potentially rebuild or actually take existing systems that were fine out, which comes at the additional cost, not necessarily to the subcontractor or supplier. Often it's then the client or main contractor that holds the responsibility. But here I'm thinking already of contractual arrangements. Yeah. So, but having said all that, this linearity or the correspondence that I've kind of drawn here from one of the books. So this is actually coming from Harvey Mailer. We couldn't actually find that. So in reality, it's more like a stepped approach. So you can see normally once you have a design freeze, so again here we are talking about different project processes and delivery methods, you actually arrive at a staircase, and normally it becomes very expensive once you have constructed a lot and have systematic implementation. This is when it's painful. This is really expensive to change them. Yeah, so scope change is not as linear as it looks here, but as a trend or as an idea to think about it, that makes actually sense to be risk averse. Yeah. Okay, so what is planning? Well, the APM Glossary 2013 kind of says it's a process of identifying the means, resources, and actions necessary to accomplish an objective. And notice here, actions is as well kind of the people and potential skills and knowledge that you need. Yeah, so resources is a lot more pragmatic. Here we are talking competences and organizational capacity, right? So, so this is certainly one way of looking at it. And again, we are after an objective, right? So our project is here as well a means of achieving, objective goals, depending on how you want to look at it. So when you break it actually down, well, this is really the former one. Planning is as well a hierarchical process. This is a lot more important to me. So you are actually often planning from the top down. Yeah? So in other words, we are looking, well, what are we trying to achieve? What is a big goal of our project? Yeah? What are we delivering in terms of product or as well service? And then you kind of start modularizing. Yeah? You take it apart. So you can do this by looking who has actually worked in the past on something like this. Yeah, so simplified here, this was basically the first sentence. So making decision in advance on actions. So you give it out by packages. So if you know that this product can be achieved by one person building the foundations, if you go with a building or the chassis frame for a car, then this is kind of a starting point. Yeah, but normally this is already the production order. So when you plan, you actually look at the packages that need to be involved. So this involves as well deciding what to do and how to do it. Yeah, so in a way, you have here as well the power to decide actually the production life cycle, if you want, or how to produce it. Describing this and documenting it in it for presentation. So this is as well kind of coming from the idea, of course, to a concrete application where you have looked at how it's actually doable. Yeah. In order to do this, information has to be gathered and analyzed, alternatives have to be developed and evaluated, and choices to be made. Now be careful, so particularly at university or design stage, if you know a product or an industry very well, you can properly redesign the whole industry. But be aware, so this is tempting often in the design stage. There as well forerun times to actually arrive at collaborative performance. So you have to then plan as well into the project management plan and the critical activities, preparation times to actually harmonize. So again, this is like something that is often lost out of the eye, particularly when we're talking about so to name a few beautiful incentives where we have done that, with BIM collaborative, well, it's not really a standard, it's really just a cabinet office report. You're actually changing how construction has worked together. So believing that this will be more productive straight away is quite frankly naive. And similar in automotive or aerospace, we had similar movements by standardizing, hoping that everybody would share information. Of course they don't. So there's a certain implication with redesigning as well production flows. But we have the power here at that level. And there, and vice versa, you can as well set kind of production modes or plan for modes that you have already familiarized yourself with, right? So that it works in both directions. So all decisions are interdependent, of course, and have to be integrated together. So this is, in an engineering mind, a hard problem, but it's of course a soft problem because you should consult with your potential partners to come actually up with a reasonable representation of what you can achieve, right? Okay, so why is planning important? Well, at the strategic level, it's direction by focusing on what the business is about. So in your document, in the project management plan, for example, or delivery plan, you may have wonderful things like a vision, mission, goal, objectives, which you may have established up front with a charter or some form of project initiation document, yeah, so that you will carry through and refine from, right? So here it provides a link between where we want to go and how we get there as well. So yeah, and here's already a hidden clue. Indirectly, it's as well a map. Yeah, so it's a guiding document or a manifestation, a focus. Yeah, nowadays we have as well a lot of virtual tools, yeah, that we actually use, softwares, or actually literally visualizations or beautiful artifacts to show what it should look like, yeah, together, so that people can actually see how their piece fit. Yeah. And this allows us to see as well the risk and range of possibilities by considering the current situation and what might threaten it or what opportunities for benefit might occur. So this is really kind of looking at the breakdown that you get from the contractors and subcontractors, suppliers. Like they tell you, okay, we can deliver this in those conditions. And with this list or with the intent of how you want to work, you come as well to the potential risks. But again, those guys are often more knowledgeable, so you want to involve them in the risk assessment. And if you can make that contractual, because otherwise you're really here on goodwill, and here you get often a standard answer rather than a good risk assessment. Yeah, but I mean this is just one dimension. Yeah. For you personally, as a project manager, it will help us to control. Well, again, through the wonderful control cycle, to see actually if we are performing on that level, right? So you can give as well feedback in terms of progression, which is a motivation tool. So you can show how you're gradually achieving your aim. Yeah. And you can as well, of course, spot if something is off track, if the times don't align or if the work packages take longer. And yeah, respectively, a powerful tool for us. Yeah. So with the planning hierarchy, the idea, I mentioned it already, it's a modularized approach. Here we are kind of working with scope, tactics, and action broken down basically into the general. So what are we trying to do? And then kind of breaking the general pieces down based on the expertise that we are bringing into our project team into the more specific. Yeah? But again, what does that actually mean? It's easier written than done, and it's often not that linear. So you cannot break down a system like a turbine into individual teams. There are actually turbine specialists. There are certain packages that have systematic implications. So this is a little bit oversimplified. But to think of it as a breakdown structure is actually quite useful. Yeah. What are the roles of planning, and why do we do it in the first place? And what do we use it for? This is a good question. I should point out before I actually go here a step further, there are many companies that don't plan. Yeah? So they kind of do package deals, and they know their processes, they have optimized their performance and kind of production flow, and they're just tailoring this in. Yeah? So you would just have a package, there would be no breakdown necessarily. So again, so this depends how far your project management control actually goes. Yeah? So a long time ago, Laufer came up with 5 roles of planning, and they are more or less still the same, where we have a little bit more refined applications now in planning. So we have beautiful network tools to kind of look at performance and potential configuration flow, but I'll show you this later. But the big topics are still the same. You're looking kind of at action planning. So this is, you know what's going on the assembly line if you have a product, on the construction side if you have a building or some form of infrastructure, or if you do a service, you know what the package is that people are working on. So it's that simple. Then you have the coordination. You recognize when people have to do something together. Yeah? Be it in an assignment where you write one report of recognizing that there are intersections between the different sections that you may work individually on and need editing. That is basically the recognition. Yeah? or more specifically, if the elevator stairs get delivered to a skyscraper, look if they actually fit and if they can actually run. Has it actually been built to specification as required? And this is on either side, right? So we have the interface for the elevator stairs as well as the elevator stairs itself, right? So can be as well as simple as making people talk to each other. So coordination costs are often the hidden burden of the project manager, but it's as well our bread and butter. So this is of course a wonderful thing. Then we have the control. This is more about visuality of performance versus accountabilities and legal, contractual obligations. So have a look at the contracts as well. So this is very important. And it allows us, of course, to project or forecast what is going to happen next. So if you know you have a critical activity going on at the moment, so the paint of one of the wings has been not delivered yet, so and the wing is late for one of the plane, then you can actually forecast that it will run late. So you can let everybody else know that they don't have to rock up yet on the assembly line, right? So otherwise it's a waste of time. They would be just coming there and potentially, of course, probably depending on your relationships, they probably come with a price tag. So you would have to pay for their time wasted. So of course you would kind of notify them that there's a delay in the assembly of your plane. And then you can optimize it, of course, and there are different ways of optimization. We have a look at that. So planning hierarchy here, this is a little bit more detailed. I didn't really want to go into this, hence I summarized it in the previous slides. So this is a more refined one. Maybe one of the key things that I mentioned already. So nowadays we play a lot more systematic games. So we map actually out about systematic implications for our parts, for our systems that we may buy, that they are working. So this is a rising problem in all industries. Again, the rest can kind of be categorized in the previous elements. Other ones as well, you try to encourage learning. This is another new one, but have a look at it. It's as well part of the paper, so it's quite interesting. So what are the stages actually of planning? What are they? Well, we have the inception. Is there a project? This is not the starting point. So I'm laughing about it. Often projects are started with not having a clear idea what they actually try to achieve. Particular problem-oriented or change projects often make initially sense on the paper, but may not make sense later on to the project team because you don't have the right representation. Now, often we have additional tools, and we have that already a little bit. Outline design, feasibility, will it work? What are the costs? What are the deliverables? What is the procurement strategy? Do we have one? Do we need one? How are we actually going to organize the whole thing? What are the organization that we're actually doing for this? And then you come to kind of more detailed design, procurement process, maybe even thinking about the production, how will the different parts come together, and how can we make sure that we actually check everything. And then it's just close out and review and use, and normally as a project manager you are out at that point. So it's a linear narrative. It sounds quite good. It's more or less that, but is it really? So that's a big question. In reality, you will see it's much more complex than this, and it depends as well on procurement for overlaps. So you want to have, again, this systematic implication. And last but not least, who does actually know how to plan? So we have actually planning degrees, and actually we have them here as well. So we have engineering planning. This is often a top view with one perspective. This is often not the perspective of your subcontractors, of your, first of all, probably client. Then you're talking about supply chain expertises that come actually into your project. So a word of warning at that point, if you're particularly passionate about planning, make sure you consult with the right people. Otherwise, this is quite a ride. So one way to plan and govern comes more from a conceptual analysis of the few mega projects that went well. Yeah, and so mega projects, we have that next week actually in a designated session, so mega projects and mega programs. In a nutshell, they are often large-scale, complex projects, and they kind of try to break that down into typologies and recognize patterns. And this is kind of a descriptive empiry, what it comes to. So be careful, there are limits with this. But it's a good starting point to start thinking about it. So they kind of looked at contingency theory, critique of one-size-fits-all thinking, basically, and then came up with 4 categories, which shows you that they haven't understood the theory in the first place. No, I'm joking about that. But the point is, they kind of have 4 dimensions. So they kind of recognize that there are types of technology uncertainty, yeah, and then you have another 2 dimensions which have to do with levels of complexity, and then I'm missing here a few, but constructability was another one. Well, I'll show you the model actually that I have for them. So it comes really down to technology complexity with super high-tech, medium, low-tech. And I think I showed you this already as a potential model, how you can start thinking about dimensions that you have to manage for as well in planning. With novelty as well, you have kind of a derivative, a platform, a breakthrough, and then complexity. Here you have array, system, assembly, and so again here array. This is really where you sit there and you have to kind of puzzle together yourself. Systems has often to do with part systems that have to function together, and assembly is literally the lightest form. Yeah, so you have very little liability. You just have to sit to check that it fits together and it has actually the right implication. And as well with pace, they recognize that a lot of projects are compromised by that. So do you have a project that you're delivering against all odds a lot faster? So they kind of classify that as blitz, as like the lightning, yeah. And then you have time critical, fast competitive, and then kind of regular pace. So those were kind of the dimensions that they came up with, yeah. Now, if you look at that, so I wanted to look at particularly at the complexity. You can see in an array project a system of systems, system with independent functions, but each with a common goal. So again, here you're buying often systems from companies. So be aware, we had that with the hidden agendas in supply chain. Yeah, so there may be implications why they have designed the subsystem that way, which may actually not complement your project or your product, right? So examples here that they analyzed from the paper were airports, channel tunnel, new national-wide mobile communication systems, and the like, basically. Then with system projects, they had kind of single system with focusing on a common goal, often with a platform with subsystems. Yeah? So here you had aircraft, air traffic control system, maybe even buildings. Yeah? And then you have kind of assembly project that is self-contained components that are kind of testable in their own right. So it's a little bit easier to kind of control it and perform a function in a larger system, but kind of partly independent if you want. Yeah. And this is often modular components or sub-assemblies. Computer stations, arguably, or our new mobiles have that as well. You can take actually existing components out and replace them with newer ones to upgrade. But again, this was kind of coming from their paper, and here's as well the pragmatic kind of way of breaking it down. So what they identified in successful projects, particularly for the complexity and organization, you have assembly projects. So here you want to have a single organization, often one functional group with the help from other functions. Yeah? So small team working often in one location. So if it works that way, yeah. So again, be aware, I've turned it around here. Yeah? So this is array, this was assembly. So we start here basically with assembly. Yeah? So it's reversed. Then you have the system projects. This is main contractor responsible for delivery of product, and task divided among several subcontractors, in-house or external often. Yeah? Actually, most likely external. So then you have area projects, and here it's really a central umbrella organization. This is your project office, right? So often separate entity or company and formally coordinates program and sub-projects. So here you are really starting to work on the intersections of the different delivery parts, right? So, and the planning has to basically cater for this. Yeah. Deals with financial, logistical, and legal and political issues. So you're as well outside looking. Yeah, this is very important to realize. And project often spread over a wide geographical area. So we come actually to the example with Airbus. It's like distributed all over Europe. Yeah. They have even built their own planes to bring then the wings to the assembly line in France. So there's a lot to be probably considered in something like that. Now, this is as well a key role then. So with the system integrations, you have kind of a operator and user, but before this you have the system integrator that holds accountability. So design and integrate hardware, software, and services into functional systems. And this is not, I'm not talking here about software as one software, but this is literally the information management. So the information from the subsystem suppliers and component suppliers and maybe even part suppliers are critical here when you come to that. So then the planning takes on a different dimension. You would probably treat that as kind of a configuration log to see who's on trail. So this means you treat each element kind of as a package. Yeah. So with the system integration, you have another dynamic, so organization with the capabilities to coordinate the design, integration of components and subsystems. So by this should, of course, involve client involved in several projects. So you have as well to manifest actually that the user or client actually is involved in making the final decisions on what goes ahead, particularly in the planning and design stage. Then as well prime contractor, potentially maybe even joint ventures. Very often in those scales where you play actually with joint ventures to kind of give the ownership together with the responsibility to them, right? If you're just contracting, then this is often a different game. In a joint venture, they are legally accountable. So if something goes wrong, they run as well the company against the wall and lose reputation and money. Yeah. So that is basically how you can tie them in. So a legal tool for you to consider. This as well creates a process to coordinate a large network of suppliers. So with a joint venture, you have maybe other way around. The organizational capacity sits often with your joint venture partners. So you bring them in based on their capability and competency. Yeah. Okay. Now they kind of concluded as well on that. So uncertainty and contractual approach. So this is kind of pitching already a little bit aside of our planning idea, but it gives you an idea how you could approach the procurement side. Yeah? So here they have a cost plus contract versus fixed price contract, and you have to be very careful depending on your relative uncertainty. If it's high, basically you play here a game. So cost plus contract is when the uncertainty is high, you create motivational incentives. Yeah? So risk and opportunities are shared by client and contractors, particularly if it's a joint venture. Client bears the cost of development and seeks to avoid less than optimal solutions, and contractor has an incentive to produce best result and maintain profits, or even additional bonuses that come with it. Yeah? And fixed price contract, if you're very familiar and the systems that you're bringing in is basically your bread and butter, then you can go for a fixed price contract. So a contractor takes on all the risk. This would be potentially you. Does not work well for high-tech uncertainty. So again, some of the dimensions are really dangerous for that kind of approach, because then it creates a risk for client and contractor, and you may not be capable of dealing with it, right? You may be, then it's fine, but again, there's implication. Yeah? And then you have the contractor loses money due to unexpected events, maybe, and clients get an inadequate product when contractor stays within the price range. So there's a potential already on recognizing that things may actually become more expensive. Yeah. Okay. so that was one way of challenging kind of or thinking differently about planning and how you can actually break it down. So we had here a different systems approach. Coming back to kind of the common work breakdown structure-based project types, you actually arrive at a different question, and that is the uncertainty level. So we had this already in the previous model addressed with uncertainty, but I wanted to kind of revisit this a little bit. So mainstream and new stream projects was one category that we had already. So what is the only certainly with projects? Well, normally there's as well tax and other ones, and if you're very cynical, the other joke was death. Yeah, but in this case, I want to hint towards the uncertainty. Yeah, and the question, of course, for us is how do the expert planners or often producers deal with it, or do they? Well, the quick answer is they actually don't. So they go basically in a scenario-based setting. So first of all, the recognition. Project managers cannot predict the future, yeah, but they can accurately gauge the degree of uncertainty, and inherent in their projects can help them quickly adapt to it. And this is the way to do it. So we can kind of break it down, uncertainty. Yeah. So here, project types of uncertainty. We have variation, comes from small influences, yeah, too small to plan for individually, such as worker sickness, the resulting of variations. Yeah, but it can be planned and monitored. So you can still look at that partially, but you should have contingencies for that. Yeah? So you can make that even contractually. Actually, most contracts are written out that way. Yeah? Then you have foreseen uncertainty. This is identifiable and understood influences which may or may not occur, needs risk analysis, and contingency can be provided for just in case. So here the example was a drug company and side effects of the new drug. Yeah? And again, if the side effects are outmaneuvering kind of the main effect, then you would probably not subscribe to it. But if the side effects are small and you can manage them and they only happen in very small proportions, then you can kind of subscribe it with additional drugs to kind of work on the side effects. Yeah? So this is a little bit the idea. Then we have the unforeseen uncertainty, and this is again where it gets problematic, but we can even plan for that. So there is no plan B. The team is unaware of the events possible. Example, Viagra. Does everybody know this? Yeah. So it was meant to be a heart medicine, didn't work very well, had a side effect. They noticed this actually that the test people that got the Viagra didn't show any signs of having better heart improved conditions, but still refused to give back the test packages. Yeah, and then the scientist noticed, this is very strange. It doesn't work, but they want to keep it. Why is it? And then further investigation showed that it pleased like one of the main dilemmas of aging, potentially. Oh, not just that. Yeah. But anyway, so there you go. Then, last but not least, of the uncertainty is chaos. So here, even the basic structure of the project plan is uncertain. IT developments when research, not development, research, not the development is the goal. So you may just test to come to a clarity if something works or doesn't, and the result of that is good enough. Yeah. So just to warn you, this is potentially the kind of category that your MSc dissertation may go towards. Yeah? And many students are always like, what is he talking about? Chaos? No, this is an uncertainty level that nobody needs. So one of the best PhD theses or MSc dissertations that I've read is where they wanted to do really great research and asked like a lot of companies if they could give you an answer, and nobody answered. Yeah. So I know this is just heartbreaking. Yeah, from a project point, you really feel like, what the hell? I'm missing the point of my outcome. But for me as a scientist, this is actually mind-blowing because you have picked a topic that really nobody wanted to answer. So this is a finding in itself. Yeah, but again, normally the student satisfaction is not so high with this approach. Yeah, but again, in research, we are after kind of discovery. So even discovering failure is a wonderful thing for us. Whilst again, in the company, this is maybe not an option for you. Yeah. So you may have to spin it differently. If you have a company where this is an option, this is very good, of course. Yeah. But again, even for chaos, you can actually simulate. Yeah? So you can actually run a model and look when things go very wrong. Yeah? And we do that in most industries where it's critical. Yeah? We actually map very closely for that. So chaos theorems are as well a wonderful thing actually to map out against. Yeah? Okay, so how do we plan and control in these circumstances? So we had already the uncertainty. So one way is the predictability, and you will have said a lot as well with Claudio, Mohamed, and Dave, yeah, on the risk management. They go a lot more into this. So discovery allows projection. That is kind of the bottom line. So there is a planning accuracy, and uncertainty is proportional to time and planning requirements accuracy. So this translates in the earlier you plan and the less kind of dependables you have agreed yet, the less accurate your plan is, right? So it's a simple causality. So if you have an idea and you want to build a house and you just know it's supposed to be pretty, then the planning based on this is pretty scarce, right? So it's probably likely to be pretty, but the more you know about your house, the more you kind of think about the different aspects, the more accurately you can actually make decisions. Yeah? And respectively, the more practical or expensive it becomes depending on the products available. Yeah. So now we had that. Did we have that already? So this is basically one process of trying to look a little bit at planning accuracy. So up front, you have the kind of a process recognition, and this is what I kind of referred to. So strategically, you may have a vision, or you may have a market share that you kind of see. Then you have the production, maybe initially a product to set up the product. Then you have the actual production of the part system or the execution. And then you have the kind of, last but not least, the daily, weekly production where you are very certain what you're going to do or what needs to happen to actually achieve your product. Yeah? Does that make sense? So here you have the project, which is maybe based on big packages, yeah, that companies do. Then you have the short term, okay, you know, on this week there are certain parts to arrive to be actually assembled. And then weekly, daily, okay, those are the parts that have to be kind of combined, and you need a specialist maybe for particular welding on an engine block, or if you fit turbines, you know, you need somebody that is specialized in actually putting the right. Oh, I don't know the English word. So it's like little knots that you basically bend around, and then they hook into a system. But this was very simplified. Yeah. So. This would be basically what it comes to. And again, you don't need to know how many actually go in the plan in. You just need the unit to understand how many they need. So if they have the whole package there, then this is something you can control against. But you're normally challenging here their competence. So those teams or as well specialist contractors are normally very good with this. So they normally communicate that up front. It is well in the pricing normally afterwards. So you can see this. Okay, so this gives you kind of the overarching idea of time, and I did here already basically what I've mapped out here. So this is basically part of the information gathering, so there's a logic to it, which again here in this case is top down. Then there's a sequencing requirement, so there's an order as well in which you have to implement it. And there may be methods, maybe there are even alternatives. So this is very powerful if you go to that level. Yeah, there are some organizations that go to that level. The honest answer is a lot of project organizations kind of bet on one way a horse will work, and then they have maybe one plan B. But again, this is probably well, they carry the risk basically, and that dictates as well kind of the resources that are needed. Yeah, and of course, method and resources are kind of informed by past experience. So you may have it yourself, or you may buy it in. And there's as well performance data. Yeah, and again, both those are normally perceived confidential by other parties. So if you ask them like, okay, I give you 10 days to do your part, but how long do you really need? What do you do as a contractor? Yeah, thank you for asking. Now I can give you accurate data. We normally just need 1 day to do it. Is that what happens? No. Okay, some people maybe, yeah, it depends on your relationship. So a lot of companies perceive that actually as kind of commercial interest. Yeah, it's a bargaining power as well. So they know that on day 9 when they rock up, they can still achieve their project, and they have 10 days float to make the other kind of projects that they're working on meet, and that they're not driving all over the country. So they often have their own logic, of course, in terms of planning their work to be as well financially liable or profitable, a lot simpler. So who should plan by that definition? Well, we had that already, everyone. So I had the client here defining the needs and implementation schedule. And if you're better, we had that already, requirements and as well kind of desires, maybe, if you can capture that. Then the design team managing the briefing, design development. Then the implementation group, if you have separated it that way, producing the system or facility. And here the facilities management group is a testing, commissioning, and using actually, and potentially additional services that come along with that. Yeah. Now, so who should plan? Consider, can the project manager? So the bottom line is basically we need their input. So without the people involved here, you cannot really do it. Yeah. So what techniques can we use? Now this is a quick run through common tools and techniques. I'm not going into a lot of detail because a lot of the softwares nowadays kind of ask you to put basically the right data in. But again, we have a look. So the traditional ones, technique that can be used is bar charts, networks, PERT, visual methods. Where do computers fit in here? So softwares already. Yeah. Has everybody used all of those? Can I just ask? Who has done a bar chart before? Yes, okay, a few. But potentially for your MSc proposal, they will ask you if you have a very ambiguous research project, they ask you to plan it, but this doesn't happen a lot. So this is when Michelle is really in doubt you can deliver your project in time. Then networks and PERT, anybody? Okay, again, a few, yeah. Other visual methods? Yeah. What for example?
Some from the presentation PowerPoint has.
Okay, so this is reporting, yeah? Yeah. So the very popular ones are kind of live dashboards, where you have an issue log, then the kind of pressing activity, the to-do list, and then so there are fancy dashboards for that too. And you saw as well some with the project portfolio management, so this can be upscaled and kind of basically inform further. Computers, so a lot of information models are now used as well for kind of capturing, even streaming. We have now a movement, although invented kind of in the 60s with big data, we have now kind of arrived where we slowly start actually having live streaming of data. So you can actually see how much concrete has been poured on your construction site, or how many meters of cabling have gone into your wonderful plane or car. Yeah, so this is actually now available. Not sure that always helps, but it's certainly mesmerizing. So you have a lot more data at hand. If you do it very simple, it's kind of the product breakdown structure plus work breakdown structure that are most commonly applied. So product breakdown structures into kind of subsystem and arrays, so that you can actually kind of follow where the different parts come in when they're actually critical to your logical alignment. Yeah. So this means it defines all the products and deliverables that the project will produce. And this is often coming together with accountabilities and respective performance quality criteria. Yeah. Then you have the work breakdown structure, which we have already. So it defines all the work to produce the deliverables. So this is as well normally functionally packaged. So don't try to break the work down from, for example, specialist contractor or additional. So particularly dangerous is if you start like looking at the details of building an engine, or turbine or anything like that, then you are often too far. Yeah. Okay, so what does it actually entail? So work breakdown structure as an analogy to look at it. If you have a jigsaw, right, so there are certain work assignments that you could use here. So it's the level 1 that kind of gives you the idea. Then you have kind of the task level, which is the breakouts, and then you maybe have even the subtasks that need to be performed. And this is basically how you want to break it down. And this may be the level that you want to plan as well at, but this depends on the complexity of your project. So if here you are starting to write, one person is assembling bricks and the other one is laying the mortar, which is very unlikely, so normally they go together, then this is too refined, right? But if we are still talking here about some system relevant elements, then this makes sense to break it down to that level. Yeah. So again, there are different industries and standards that kind of provide you with it. The simple notion is keep it as simple as possible. Yeah. So it's actually the reverse thing. Control says like break it down to each detail, but in reality for useful collaboration, keep it as simple as possible. Yeah. Okay, here's a functional analysis, and I know you have all wondered about this before in your life. How can we make a T as efficient as possible? I wonder every morning. So there's a hidden work breakdown structure. I mean, this is just from my flat. Yeah? So you may have a different system here. So the idea is I do something like this. So fill the kettle, switch the kettle on, boil the water. So actually I pre-boil. Yeah? So this is already how efficient I am, because I've noticed that the walk to the cupboard to get the tea out takes a little bit time, and then I just have to re-press, and then, yeah. But anyway, so here then scald pot. What is scalding? Does anybody do that? What is the worst thing when you make tea? What do you not want? Did nobody have tea ever before? How do you like your tea? Okay, you are already far beyond here, yeah? So, too much milk? What's the problem with too much milk? What happens then? So it's just milky, that is one side, right? Is it still warm when you put milk in?
They put in the equivalent tea bag as well, it's not putting the milk before the tea bag. And then put in the milk before the tea bag. Okay. Yeah, that's the worst one. That means you're drinking only the milk.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how you do
and often the tea doesn't even come out, right? Because it needs a hot water basically to get the flavor in it, yeah? So this is of course a dilemma. Okay, here we are talking, yeah? And this is exactly why I kind of scald the pot, so that the pot is hot too, yeah? Or warm, kind of, yeah? Then put the tea bag into the pot, then reboil the actual water, then pour the water, place pot on the tray, put milk in the jug, put sugar in the bowl, get tray, place milk sugar cup on the tray, serve, tea has been served. This is it. And of course we are interested here as well in time. Yeah, this is often how it is at mine. Yeah, so so general aspects of the work breakdown structure does not show the sequence of the work necessarily. Yeah, so this is often just the packages if you want. And I've done it here in a list because it's not very complicated. Yeah? So you see here the simplified notion. Often we have a functional work breakdown structure, so you can see as well the packages that are involved. Yeah? Then there's a task duration should be linked to a review period as well. So yeah, plan that in, yeah, or even put it as a separate unit that you actually can review it. And then the project activities or even subtask should have durations no greater than 1 to 3 weeks. So otherwise it makes sense to break down again. Again, this is kind of literature from 2009, 2010. More recently we have new approaches with last planning, very popular, and well, actually quite a few new theorems that kind of would not really make statements on how, well, they basically don't plan before you actually come 3 weeks to the activities. Yeah? So they kind of have a different theorem there. So estimating resources as well, an exact estimate is possible when you are closer, of course, to this timing. Yeah? So the more experience there is of an activity, the easier it is to estimate, and you have normally as well contextual understanding, which is very powerful. Yeah? So if people are punished for failure, they will pad estimations. So particular, if you look at any kind of big projects that go through Parliament, there's even a study that predicts how likely the overrun is, and it gives you a percentage, the multiplier for the actual budget. So in other words, if you are being rewarded for having a low budget, but there's no accountability for strategically representing the prices, then of course the numbers will be padded to the lower end, and not be surprised when they are in reality maybe double or 3 times the price, right? So project estimating assumes 50% probability estimates are used unless specified otherwise. So you see this as well, enormous thresholds, right? Yeah. So make sure it's as well a consensual estimate. So situation A has here kind of in a short time 4 estimates versus here in a longer duration kind of 5 estimates. And well, first of all, which one is more desirable in terms of time? What do you think? Which one are more reliable? Is there a difference between situation A and B for estimates? So situation A, we are very likely to have very similar estimates. Yeah? Look very promising. Oh look, it's so same. It's absolutely the same. Now the more reliable and risk-averse ones are the situation B, right? So this is a problem. Yeah? And if you are bidding for something and it looks reliable, actually we see that in a lot of election. We don't go with a person that recognizes, oh, this is complicated, oh, this could be problematic. We are going like with a guy that, yes, I can do this no matter what. Yeah. So no matter what, yeah, versus oh, we may face some problems. Yeah. So in planning, we should go with one that says like, oh, we may face some problems. Yeah. But again, there's a sales pitch on the other side. Yeah. Now we have as well something like logical dependencies. So here we are back at my pot. So the start-to-start activities. Yeah, we can do them in parallel if you want. Yeah. So in my tea making, this is boil water and put milk in the jug. Yeah, they're independent, and I'm I wouldn't say multi-skilled, but I just can manage the sequence to do that. Yeah. Then start and finish activities. So we have to fill the kettle to then switch the kettle on. If you have done so without doing this before, it smells very funky, depending on what you had in it before. So and you burn actually the kettle. So you shouldn't do that. Yeah. So hence. First we have to fill the kettle and then switch the kettle on. So this is start and finish activities. Then we have kind of finish and finish activities. So put milk into jug and put sugar into jug, yeah, so before we can actually run off with the tray. So they may have a shared version of arriving on the tray. Yeah. Okay, so here is a critical, here's an activity network. So activity on Node. So here we have the start, fill kettle with my time, and we have as well a critical path analysis actually implicit. What is a critical path here? Yeah, so this was the right answer. It's a kind of yellow, orange, beige, depending on where you sit, you may see the color different. And the red line basically, this was red too. But okay, so basically we are trying out here to analyze our activities in terms of the maximum duration of our project. Yeah? Be aware this is very easy for the kettle. Once you hit bigger projects, be it it doesn't really matter which industry, critical paths shift quite quickly. Yeah? So what is at the beginning of your planning exercise a critical path? And what is halfway through your critical path may actually change. Yeah, so keep an eye on that. Yeah, so this can happen quite easily. So here you can see we have kind of 2 paths, and the more critical one is basically the fill the kettle, switch the kettle on, boil the water initially, scald the pot, reboil, pour water, place pot on the tray, and serve. Yeah, so this is kind of the critical path. Put the tea bag in is pretty quick, so you can see the reboiling takes longer than that. And I had already pre-boiled because this takes long, right? So that was kind of the hard part, 180 seconds. And then here again the alternative path as well was switch kettle on while this is boiling in the background. I put milk in the jug, put sugar on the bowl, get tray, put milk and sugar and cup and saucer on the tray. And then last but not least, once I have the pot and I can put it as well on the tray and serve the tea. Yeah. So my best time, 253 seconds. I encourage you to try that at home as well. Yeah, see where you arrive with this. Yeah. There are some efficiencies actually. This is actually not the most efficient way of doing it. But again, this is maybe something you want to investigate further. But this is basically the activity network and as well a critical path analysis if you go to that level. Yeah. Now there's as well a program evaluation and review technique, so short for, long for PERT really. So this is kind of probability versus days early versus days late, and it's a distribution of activity times. So this is just a statistical analysis to kind of give you an idea what you should evaluate. This was so this is a linear model actually, although it's a Gauss-Glock model. So the distribution that would be naturally expected, which means it's very unlikely that you are super early and or a lot of days earlier, and it's very unlikely that you're a lot of days late. But there's a high chance that you have a fluctuation. And this underlines. So if you're deterministic about it, then you kind of come at a linear relationship here with a factor of 4 against 6. So this is optimistic duration versus likely duration versus pessimistic duration, and the likely duration will be put in here with a factor of 4 to give it proportion of 6. So this is basically the linear translation of expected time for the task. So this means you should as well calculate those, and if you want, you can even visualize it. So optimistic duration versus pessimistic durations, and see if you hit this. This is as well an indicator for your risk. But again, here it depends how detailed you want to be in your plan. Now this allows you then as well potentially, we could put as well the PERT into the Gantt chart actually, and many softwares do that for you. So they give you already the extended times and shows you then different scenarios. So here you have kind of the breakdown again. So this is kind of the Gantt chart to visualize in terms of time what activities I'm actually working on or what task I'm working on, right? And again, with timing in the end. Now, how do we actually know where we are? So an essential part of the control cycle, PDCA, is of course to report this back as well. So and in a way doing the trend analysis for you. So using current state of information to forecast the future state and to take action to achieve it is your intent. And basically measuring where we are now versus comparing it to where we should be. And again, to give you the example on the Gantt chart, basically after filling the kettle and switching the kettle on, you are here, and then the kettle boils, and if you stand around, then you can still make it for some time. So you have some float on the other tasks here to put sugar in the bowl. That has to make sense. Actually, I've just realized that the times are not properly. This was 180 seconds. Okay, but something went wrong with my Gantt chart. I have to update it. But nonetheless, so the idea is it's basically as well a tool to show you where you are, and the closer you get to completion, right? Okay, so this can be as well simple but time-consuming physical measurement. So keep it functional. In some, so in PepsiCo, for example, we did something crazy called asset management, which means we put a sticker at the time against each subpart, each assembly part of our industrial factories, which to give you an idea of the scale, so the gym is basically a quarter of one of the factory lines for potato chips, and you have a lot of engineering machines and fryers and filter systems and assembly lines actually running there. It's not really assembly line, it's basically a line that brings the crisp to your packaging, that then folds it and glues it. But the point is, this can be extremely time consuming depending on your project, so and your industry. So be careful with it. Don't go crazy. It's easily kind of defined with the client up front, but it may make the project hell for all the other teams that work with you. Measurement of resources used against those forecasted. This is often followed through as well in terms of cost. So versus anticipated cost versus spend. And then visualization tools, color charts, cash flow graphs. Well, actually, we have a lot more nowadays. But think about visualization of simplifying the complexity of your data. so that the stakeholders can actually understand it. Yeah. Last but not least, there's as well the space, of course, for earned value analysis, which is as well a wonderful tool to kind of basically give positive feedback to your client in terms of what value has been achieved already, and it's as well a good tool for your team as motivation. Yeah. Okay. Now with the planning and program techniques, there's as well another dimension to this. So, for example, we have assumed that most of you know how to produce a program, which is a planned physical communication document of a plan. Yeah? So you may perform your project within a program. Yeah? But the warning here, I know as well that a lot of you probably haven't yet worked with something like that. So I've given you as well a scenario-based learning paper where you can play a little bit around with it to make sense with it. Yeah. Now, as mentioned previously, plans are normally output as lists, bar charts, networks, PERT. Project management community is really keen, particularly on networks nowadays. So hence we had as well visual network analysis and strength analysis with visual methods as well additionally. So in resource management, we often come to the other dimension, and we had that a little bit with the T example. Yeah? So looking at resource critical versus time critical programs, and often this relates to resource critical versus time critical industries. So this could be shipbuilding versus pharmaceutical research. It's a lot easier to get 3 extra administrators and 3 extra researchers. I'm not sure that that is still true, but there's an element of that. Yeah? So with resource management, mainly based on bar charts. So this is again going back as well to Gantt charts and logical dependencies. So here you would specify resource allocation, work out the resource and put into the correct bar. Respectively, you would as well look at your resources like forerun times. So if you have complicated systems that need to be ordered 8 months ago before you can actually assemble it, then this is basically the forerun time. Then you would have as well resource aggregation, add up totals of each resource needed per week and day. Then resource smoothing, use a float in non-critical activities to move bars and their associated resources. Yeah. So what is float? Or what do you think float is? Did we have float in my tea kettle example?
It's an activity that can be moved within the time scale.
Yeah, spot on, yeah. So float is the recognition that an activity is non-critical for the delivery duration. Yeah, so you have other activities that are going on that make the duration duration that it will take for the project, whilst the other activity you can run in parallel, and you have basically the threshold of when to start this within the duration that is the critical path duration. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Then you have as well the resource leveling. So this is if the resources are still not smooth, then look at altering the program or changing the critical path if peaks. If you have enormous peaks where you actually have critical activities. Yeah. So this means as well, if you have like at some point of your project resourcing all resources on site or on your assembly line, or your whole service team has to be there at the same time, then it's very likely to be a bad idea. Yeah? Because contingencies should be in place. You should have at least a backup plan. So if all your resources go in, this should be probably be rescheduled. Yeah? Now, with planning, it's as well important to review. Actually, this is a key element really of the plan. Otherwise, you may as well not have a plan. It involves making decision in advance of action, which means as well a warning sign. So it means that you may have to iterate the different packages that you have kind of constructed. Deciding what and how is of course as well involved. Describing and documenting and presenting, this is kind of the role of the project manager. Information gathering and analysis, of course. and consider alternatives developed and evaluated, so that you have them kind of as a theoretical alternative ready with potential companies or contractors, as you can call up, to actually come in. Yeah? Then as well, choices versus decisions. So basically provides information as well to make the right choices, right? So up-to-date information that are relevant, and not necessarily framed towards your preferred ideas. So there's a temptation as well in this. Yeah. Dealing with uncertainty, we had an assumption that breaking work down to its smallest manageable unit is a good practice. So this is as well questionable. We had already the systematic implications. And then controls through tools, particular networks. So here again, an assumption that we can manage the future in detail from now. Yeah? And so this is a very deterministic tool. Yeah? And you will see in a lot of your project scenarios, plans can go so long. Yeah? Now I have as well a health warning, and I will repeat it in a little bit more refined version when we come to control and handover. Control is as well a brother of mistrust, and I've seen that multiple times. Basically avoid the control freak or micromanagement. This breaks the trust, limits creative thinking, and erodes motivation. This leads to ring fencing as well. So if your subcontractor are not willing to give you the actual running times that they need to kind of perform, then they've probably experienced something like this in the past. It means as well time wasting. Yeah? So if you're actually checking if somebody is on time, how many hours has they really been on site or on the assembly line, and then you're incentivizing that they are standing in a quiet corner before actually completing. Yeah? So that you set the rules basically, and you employ the game. Yeah? And a culture of obedience as well, risk averseness, and increase of mistakes and failure. This is when people don't say like, hey, here's something wrong. You actually achieve a culture with too much control, where people hide things, right, and say it was somebody else. So steering is really, particular from the control part, key for complex project is delegation and empowerment. So as well recruiting the right people first, but then as well entrusting them based on your recruitment. Use milestones as orientation for competence, and as well as a potentially a recognition for additional training. And with experts or problem-solving creative teams, increase communication, sense-making, i.e. active listening. Well, we had that already a little bit. And work page intersections, so coordination rather than delegation. And I shouldn't even go there much further. So it's a coordination problem. It's not so much about control, right? So you're really trying to align here.
Robert, what do you mean by milestones as orientation for competence?
Well, so if you have shared milestones, so what is a milestone?
A target date?
Yeah, can be. So it's a target. What is a milestone? How would we use a milestone? Should we take a practical example? So what is a milestone, for example, for an assignment? What could that be? You will have different ones, right? Because you have kind of respective sets. But a few of you have milestones.
Completing a certain task, a checkpoint.
Yeah. So you could have a package that you have completed, where you all come together to review, or it could be a lot more functional, where you actually test if all the parts work together. So if you're writing a report together and you have kind of copied it in one document, maybe it makes sense to all sit down together and look at the intersections if the systematic relationship exists, or if there are logical gaps in a nutshell, something like that. But milestones we actually use as an orientation stage. So it could be on a construction site that you have kind of the wet work, the foundations are settled in a house, or for a car it may be having finished the design phase with modeling and looking if the design actually works, and then working on a design chassis that is used for manufacturing. So those could be different milestones. It could be as well that you have actually a handover of of a design to the building construction team. Yeah, so this depends again how you're framing it. But milestones is a very powerful tool. What is another alternative to kind of, particularly if you have packages of work done, what is another tool that we could use to kind of have stepping stones in our project management approach to get feedback if our team is performing well? So if we are very critical, you may have heard that with large projects or programs like what we have here in the Northeast at the moment with infrastructure, what would you want to use as a client? So let's imagine you want to build your own motorway and your own automotive factory. It was always your dream to manufacture cars. So what would you as a client, you have a little bit cash flying around, so you have the 9 billion put aside, yeah? And now would you just give it all to one company? Or what would we do? Anybody willing to give the 9 billion all to one company? Well, so we could play as well, yeah, with something like with the milestones, yeah. But what?
Research before you hand the money over.
Pardon?
Do some research on companies before you hand money over.
Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. Write in the contract that they have full liability, phone the bank up if they have like some money in the accounts, yeah, or assets that we could use as contractual leverage, yeah. What else? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I have delivery packages, yeah, and maybe a gate approach, yeah, or milestone one delivery, maybe the factory. Yeah? So empty assembly line, but at least we have a building and we know that we can put the assembly line in there, yeah, or motorway section to the harbor or something like that, yeah. And then the gates are as well the evaluation point if you can still give them the money. You know? So if you're tight with your budget, then you say like, okay, you have not hit my budget within the 10 plus minus 10% of the project delivery, then we cannot trust you anymore. You may decide to look for a new contractor and withdraw them from the contract. This may be actually upfront. So it's a gate approach then. Okay. Yeah, this is it. We run a little bit over time with this session. Let's have a pragmatic 5 minutes break. Is this enough to run down to coffee? Okay. So it's intense. Let's try to start in 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Super.